Hello, good afternoon. Salam alaikum, everybody. Today we have the same speakers who came last week, Dr. Faten Bahar and Dr. Erica Key. We are grateful to them for spending another afternoon with us, and they will continue to elaborate on the concept of the Nexus approach for sustainable use and management of water resources, and the focus is on the MENA region. So hopefully it will be of relevance to all of us who are interested in agricultural, climate, food issues, as we are in the ARC. And so without further ado, I already introduced them to you last week. Let us go straight to their talks. And so I will turn it over. I think Fatin will start. I'm not clear, but I think she is going to speak first. So Fatin, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Julie. Hello, everyone. Just I share my screen and then I start the presentation. May I have the host possibilities because I cannot share my screen.
You should be a host.
Yes, while she is making you the host, let me share with you the information with everybody, which I didn't mention last week, that Dr. Fatin is also the author of several children's books on environmental sciences. So she's a very accomplished early career scientist. She has written some books on that topic for children.
Congratulations, Faten.
Thank you so much. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, شكرا. السلام عليكم. لكي أفي بوعدي يسرني لقاؤكم مجددا في إطار سلسلة الندوات حول Agriculture Modeling to Support Adaptation and Resilience Planning، والمواصلة مع الجزء الثاني للمداخلة التي تحمل عنوان Nexus Approach for Sustainable Use and Management for Water Resources، أمثلة ودراسات عن حالات من منطقة شمال أفريقيا والشرق الأوسط. في اللقاء الفارط تعرضنا وفسرنا الصلة بين المياه والطاقة والغذاء في إطار ما يسمى بالنكسوس لدعم الأمن المائي في منطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال إفريقيا. واليوم سنحاول الإجابة عن سؤال ما يجب توفيره لنجاح تفعيل هذه العلاقة بين الماء والطاقة والغذاء من خلال تحليل واستعراض بعض الأمثلة والدراسات من المنطقة. أولاً، واعتماداً على بعض الدراسات والمراجع، لنجاح اعتماد آلية النكسوس من المهم جداً فهم العلاقة بين مكوناته الثلاث: الماء والطاقة والغذاء، وحسن إدارة هذه العلاقات. الفهم والإدارة here understanding and management. ومن المهم أيضاً كما تم عرضه في المرة الفارطة فهم والتمعن في كيف لعنصر الماء دعم الأمن الغذائي والأمن الطاقي، كيف لعنصر الطاقة دعم الأمن الغذائي والأمن المائي، ما هي العلاقة بين هذه العناصر وكيف تتفاعل مع بعضها. ثانياً، أهمية ودور الحوار والتواصل بين الإطارات والجهات الفاعلة في إدارة عناصر النكسوس. من المهم هذا الفهم المشترك بين الوزارات، مثلاً رجع لها النظر في حالة توزيع المياه والطاقة والفلاحة، المؤسسات، إدراج المجتمع المدني الناشط في الغرض بهدف تطويع النكسوس لحل مشاكل الأمن الغذائي والطاقة وتحليل تداعياتها على الأوضاع الوطنية والإقليمية والمحلية للاستفادة منها. هنا مثلا أنقل بعض ردود الأفعال التي وصلتنا من المشاركين في مبادرة The Sustainable Urbanization Global Initiative سوجي Food Water Energy Nexus، وهو برنامج تمويل مشاريع التنمية المستدامة اللي تم إنشاؤه بالتعاون مع البلمون فورم and Urban Europe. وبعض ردود الأفعال التي وصلتنا عن مشاكل تفعيل آليات النكسوس كانت كالآتي: أولاً، نقص الآليات العملية التي تدعم التراود بين عناصر النكسوس وبالتالي صعوبة تحقيق الأهداف. ثانياً، نقص التفاعل بين المؤسسات التي يرجع لها النظر لكل عنصر من العناصر التالية: الماء والطاقة والغذاء. ثالثاً، ضرورة بعض إطار استراتيجي وتنفيذي يضبط هذه العلاقات حتى تتحقق الفائدة. والآن أمر إلى عرض بعض الدراسات والأمثلة حول تفعيل عناصر النكسوس لدعم الأمن المائي في منطقة شرق الأوسط وشمال إفريقيا. والمثال الأول يأتينا من تونس، أنطلق من تونس في إطار أهمية اعتماد الري بالطاقة الشمسية. هذه الدراسة تمت بمشاركة عديد من المنظمات الفاعلة في تونس للنظر في أهمية تفاعل عناصر النكسوس معا لتحقيق الأمن الغذائي وتحسين جودة المياه للأراضي الزراعية. نتائج الدراسات أشارت إلى أن اعتماد الطاقة الشمسية لضخ المياه الجوفية خاصة في مناطق الجنوب والوسط أصبحت حلاً استراتيجياً واقتصادياً، أولاً لتحسين القدرة الإنتاجية للفلاحة، وخاصة لخفض الكلفة مقارنة باستعمال أساليب الضخ التقليدية والتي كانت ديزل. وضعت الدولة آليات لتشجيع اعتماد الطاقة الشمسية الفوتوفولتايك لضخ المياه الجوفية، وذلك في شكل مساعدات ومنح للمزارعين لهدف تقليل الكلفة واعتماد الطاقة الشمسية في الأراضي الزراعية. استفادت من هذا البرنامج حوالي 20 مشروع زراعي، وأحدثت 124 نظام ري يعمل بالطاقة الشمسية بين 2010 و 2017. الولايات المستفادة منها كانت 8 ولايات على 24 متمركزة كلها في الجنوب والوسط، وبالتالي سجل اعتماد الطاقة الشمسية في ري الأراضي الزراعية في تونس تطوراً مهماً منذ سنة 2009، وقد تم ضبط إطار ترويج لهذا الغرض يحظى بمتابعة خاصة من وزارة الفلاحة التونسية. And with this, thank you very much for your attention, and I hand over to my colleague Erica to continue with the other case study. Erica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Faten. Do you mind advancing the slides like last week? Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much for welcoming us back this week. And apologies for my English. I have very little Arabic, not enough to get through these slides, so I appreciate your patience with me. I'm going to present two case studies. The first is from Jordan. I think we mentioned last week in the questions and answers about building relationships to be able to work together with ministers, with water managers, etc. And this is a case where that was an established relationship. There was the Jordan Water Project, which actually started in 2012 because there was a friendship already between the lead investigator and the Minister of Water of Jordan. They had gone to university together. And they had such a successful time working together, really mapping out water use in Jordan. And it included not just basic hydrology, but looking at remote sensing images to understand how much water was being used by Saudi Arabia for their crops. And they were able to see the crop circles along the Jordan border on the Saudi side from space and estimate how much water use that was. They were also able to look at how the Syrian conflict was affecting agriculture along that border to understand those changes in water use, and even went so far as to understand the black market for water, where people were stealing and reselling water, particularly around Amman. So all of those elements came into their study to develop a new water delivery system that would have fewer leaks in it and be able to meet the needs of a water-stressed country. Because of their success, they wanted to continue working together, and they created this food, water, energy nexus project called FUSE, again, focused on Jordan. And the photo here is from a user workshop with stakeholders where they were mapping out additional concerns around water, energy, and food in the country. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in doing that, they were able to create some of these complex diagrams and really look at the relationships between these two within context. And in the circles there, we have a number of factors that they chose to focus on further to understand what were the barriers towards improving these. So the non-revenue water, that's when water was being taken and resold on the black market, intermittent water supply because of breakdowns in the infrastructure or because of shortages otherwise, the declining groundwater as the water table was lowering because of too much abstraction, regulation, just needing to have laws in place to understand how water could be used judiciously, and things like water tariffs. So it's a real combination here of science and governance and economics and other factors like human behavior that really need to come together to understand even just the water side of this system. And then you have these external factors, climate change, the population growth and the huge migration into the area from surrounding states, and the fact that even when there is regulation, it's not enforced. So those speak a bit to external and human factors that should be integrated into this system. Next slide, please. So working with those stakeholders, I mean, we understand that these were some of the stresses on the water side of the system, but why were those stresses there? Why were they not fixed? And so they were able to identify things that could be addressed within a Nexus system. So things like ownership for the infrastructure, who is actually responsible when something goes wrong, addressing the fact that humans usually don't want to change. They're used to doing things a certain way. And so what is the incentive for them to use water differently? The centralization of monies within the capital so that rural areas may not have the same support as within the capital. And dependence on external sources of funding to be able to renew the water infrastructure. There are many things that come into place here, and they were able to categorize those in these 4 different groups where it was, a technical expertise that was needed, whether it was laws or enforcing the existing laws, whether it was about the relationship with external financiers or even just their bordering nations and how there was a shared use of water, and then awareness. There might have been solutions, but people were just either unaware or unwilling to embrace those. Next slide, please. So they've put out an excellent report, the Fuse project, and I encourage you to visit their website. They do have some very nice graphics there that clearly set out the challenges that were addressed within the Fuse project. So looking at things like climate change and those projections so that they could incorporate that into their solution making for this food, water, energy nexus. Looking at things like population, which has nearly doubled because of the infusion of migrants and the challenges that that puts on an already water-stressed system. Next slide, please. as well, looking at agriculture and the use of water there, and the ever deepening water table, making it difficult for farmers to actually access that water, and a need to shift in practices to be able to maintain their farms. So in this example, they showed that one particular aquifer had lowered by 60 meters. And so it was not possible to access that water anymore at that aquifer. The other element here within this whole Nexus approach, of course, is energy, which is necessary for operating some of the newer technology, water abstraction systems. And the demand here with the population growth, of course, is increasing. And a lot of this energy is being purchased from outside the country. So they are having to import energy. Are there ways to minimize that through clean energy methods? And how might those be applied across the country? Next slide, please. Okay, I can see someone was using their tools to interact during this presentation. So at the end, they grouped their recommendations excuse me, by different elements of the food, water, energy nexus. And I'm not going to read all of these out to you, but just to give an idea that, they're really looking at a number of different approaches, recognizing there's not one that is going to, handle all of those challenges to change that we saw a couple of slides ago. So, and there's going to be urban approaches, there's going to be rural approaches, there's going to be, joint projects like the Red Sea, Dead Sea Conveyance Project that, are in the works, and how do you maximize the most of that activity? So they've made panels like this for all of the different stressors in this system, and then are working with governance, with water delivery systems and managers, with people to change behavior, so that it's a whole system approach, and not just, here's our learning, do something with it, but really doing it together. And because this has been an extensive partnership, there's more trust, and hopefully, more transformation that can take place because of that trust. Next slide, please. So my second example for today, and I wanted to give an example outside of just the Nexus approach, but how Nexus can be applied to other areas that are relevant. And in this case, disaster risk reduction and resilience is an area that really has applied Nexus for some time. It may not have been called that, but in a really effective DRR plan really, encapsulates all of these different ways of knowing and ways of engagement. So this is, again, focusing on Qatar, and it's called Re-Energize. And just giving a couple of Twitter examples there to the side, we talk about water stress, increasing heat waves and fires, but it's not always just hot and dry. When rain comes, it can come as a flash flood, and it can be very destructive and dangerous for people. So just wanted to share that as a pictorial example that there's almost like two extremes to this system, and how can we prepare and address that when it happens. Next slide, please. So in this project, they did a lot of data gathering. One was looking at sea level rise in the Doha area and where those impacts would be felt the most, and color coded them in the map here. They also looked at the decrease in the fresh water available underground in the water table over time. And, in some aquifers, it shows a little bit of a rebound towards the end, but for the most part, it is a downward trend. And then looking at the percentage of working farms over the years, it has increased from about 60% to 80% working farms. So those abandoned are fewer, but it also means that they need more water. And where are they located within the country? This color-coded map shows the water vulnerability in the area. And unfortunately, where the farms are the most is where the water vulnerability is the highest. So it's kind of becoming this perfect storm of issues where you have less fresh water to draw from. You have more farms, which means more food, but those farms are in water-stressed areas. And then you have an intrusion of salt water from sea level rise in other parts of the country. So how would a disaster risk manager approach all of these convolving issues? Next slide, please. And it's not just about the water, whether it's salt water or fresh water. As we mentioned, heat and fire are an issue as well. And so just looking at heat waves, where the temperatures would be in excess of 56 degrees centigrade in the map, those are the darkest colors here, which are primarily along the coast, a bit cooler in the center of the country. But those heat waves, do cause stress on populations that can cause massive health problems. And with heat sometimes comes fire. And there's been quite a number of fires over the years that have caused loss of life. So here in this table, we have different disasters since 2009 that have had an impact on the population of Qatar. Some of them are, man-made disasters like the industrial accident here, but others you see fire and a flash flood that was particularly destructive, not only in terms of the people it affected, but also in the damage that it created. Next slide, please. So what they've done essentially is apply a Nexus approach to be able to handle all of these different environmental factors, but also, understands that there are multiple governance and non-governmental organizations that are involved in disaster risk planning and then disaster response. So there needs to be an interaction with governance bodies and with civil society organizations. There needs to be, more preventative work. How to do that when things look good and life is proceeding as normal. How do you advocate for investment in sort of the rainy day situation? And so part of that is an awareness building and creating plans that work so that people have faith in them when the disasters come and will support those with their government, during the sunny days. Looking at infrastructure within the country to ensure that that does not add further to the vulnerabilities that these environmental factors can introduce, and ensuring that there is a quick return to normal so that one disaster does not compound into another. So it really requires this exchange between social science, natural science, behavioral planning, governance, and recognizing where the financial sector plays a role in actually delivering this and ensuring the outcomes. So this is a nexus approach to a very complex problem. Next slide, please. And so I just want to end with the fact that these DRR nexus cases are, in fact, supported by high-level governance documents. So not only is there an Arab region disaster risk resilience plan, but Doha has made its own, and it has identified what its priorities are to be able to set out policies that will further support the research and the understanding and the planning that go into alleviating these potential disasters. And I just wanted to highlight that one of the policies, one of the priorities is food and water security, which we've talked about over the past 2 weeks. So, there are very strong relationships between the science that we've discussed and at the very highest levels, policy and preparedness that really require a nexus approach to institute fully. So I believe that's my last slide, and I'll turn back to Faten.
Thank you very much, Erica. I'm sorry for the blinds. I don't know who was playing with the tools. So with this, we said thank you for your attention, and we are very happy and welcome your questions.
Yes, thank you very much to both of you. I cannot ask Faten a question because I need to first go through the slides carefully because I missed the Arabic language part of it. But I was wondering, Erica, whether when you look at this nexus approach, what kind of economic analyses you are doing, because in the end, it is an optimization problem. You have some resources, natural and financial, and then you've got the problems, and then you have to rank order. So do they do scenario planning, or how does the economic analyses work?
Yes, that's a great question. And economic impact is part of the research effort, and there are a number of scenarios. But there's also an ability to stagger the cost and to work together with the governance to develop revenue systems that could pay for some of this. I think the biggest cost typically is the operation and maintenance, because there are a lot of organizations that will step in and help with the initial infrastructure development. The banks tend to help with that. There are corporations that will donate or subsidize the technology. When everything is sparkly and new, it's a lot easier, but it's once that's put in place and the country actually has to run the equipment or maintain the infrastructure over time, that's where a lot of the local impact comes into play. And so they run scenarios to develop a revenue system to pay for that operation and maintenance.
Thank you so much, Dr. Erica and Dr. Faten, for your presentation today. That was very informative and important to hear. Until we get more questions from our participants, I just want to ask a question. If we can summarize the steps to build an effective, sustainable water, energy, food nexus, what can we say? Can you just sum it up for us in small sentences, what we can do as Egypt? I'm talking about Egypt, of course.
Can I take this question, Erica? Maybe because I would like to go through the 3 first slides I shared. Yeah, this is a very good question, because usually this is the question that we ask, like, okay, this is very important to think Nexus, but then how to apply it, to our context, and how really to have its benefits mainly when we are talking about North Africa with all the challenges we are facing, challenges of food, security of water, also on securing energy and all this. So that's why I wanted to summarize a few of the steps, and that was based on some of the research and also some of the case studies coming from the SWITCH project. And as I referred to this in the first presentation, the first step is to really understand what kind of interaction we might have. So first, we have to identify what are the opportunities for each one of the compound. So what are our opportunities for water? What are our opportunities for energy, for food? For example, while talking about North Africa, we have really very important, like resources of renewable energy. For water, we have some of the challenges, but also our locations, like opening some sea, for example, the Red Sea for Egypt, Mediterranean Sea for Tunisia, some of the groundwaters, and then to see what kind of food activities you might have. So here we can link it to agriculture. So if you identify all of this compound and then try to understand very well what are our opportunities there and also what are our risks there, and then we try to find this kind of trade-off and balance, like how could you use this to empower the other one, and also what are the issues that you might face there. So that's why the first step is very, very important, to understand this complex interaction and to make it based in case study. And here we can, base it on our local context and also try to manage this kind of interaction. Because, for example, while talking about desalinations, also we might see, for example, the importance of this in bringing some water, drinking water, and also water for agriculture, but also what could this, for example, could affect, like the fishing space. And so, for example, we're talking about renewable energy here, for example, in Northern Africa, we're talking a lot about offshore wind energy. And this is very important to ensure that we have good resources of wind energy and also of renewable energy to support our energy security. And it's very important, but this also, on the other hand, we have to look very carefully into the biodiversity there and what kind of trade-off we can have there. So, so this is very important to really to understand what do we have, and also to identify this, what I call SWOT analysis, and then to get with some conclusion from it. So this is the first thing. The second thing, and based to some feedback we got from the project, that was, I'm promoting here the Sustainable Urbanism Global Initiative, SWITCH, Food, Water, Energy Nexus, which is a joint established initiative between the Belmont Forum and the Urban Europe. And some of the feedback we got there, that it's always on how to apply it, so how to take it to the local context, and here we are talking about stakeholder engagement, stakeholder awareness, how to bring those people all together and make them, like think on the same, like big goal, how to develop this kind of understanding of the national and regional and international context, of this. For example, in our case, if you want to do it for agriculture sector, here we have, the government, we have us, the scientists who could provide some advice, and we have also the farmers. And here, for example, I can refer to the example of Tunisia that I shared in my presentation. Like when they started the project, they needed to do this field project, like to go on site, to consult with the farmer, to ask them to switch from their traditional use of the diesel to renewable energy. And sometimes when you have something very new, so then some of the effort is needed there, like we're asking people to change their behavior in doing, things. And this will need, like some of the effort, some of the understanding, a lot of awareness, and also a lot of patience there. So this is very important when we talk about the stakeholder dialogue and stakeholder engagement. And also what we noticed that, many also, this is also very specific to North Africa, like while talking about the Nexus, we have good policies for the energy because we are now going through this energy transition. We have also very nice laws for water because we are aware about this challenge of water. So then we are talking about on how to manage the water resources, how to bring in, some of the solutions there. We know that agriculture is very important and is contributing to, great share to our GDP So we are thinking about it. But the problem is that we are dealing with this separately. Like, we do not have like a ministry within and about the Nexus as a compound, and as a system together and looking, into the interaction there. So here it's very important to talk, like about this cross-sectorial collaborations and cooperation, and also to make even those people who are, sitting there to make a decision, to see and to think and to look into this very carefully, and to make, this common decision, because each action here will surely impact the two other areas. So yeah, here I'm sharing a few thoughts. Maybe Erica would like to add to this.
I think you covered it very well, Faten. And I'm sorry we didn't have any examples to show from Egypt. We would love to continue this conversation and work with teams in Egypt. I know when I was with Belmont Forum, we reached out to ASRT and the ministry and the Academy of Sciences and the Biblioteca in Alexandria. So there's definitely interest to develop more partnerships to use these complex systems approaches. But I think Faten covered the steps very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again. Just another question about that. How can we assess it after starting our process on developing the Nexus? How can we assess the Nexus based on your experience in Doha and Tunisia and other North African countries? How can we do that?
Faten, would you like me to start? Okay, this is both an experimental and a evolving activity. It's actually still very much in the research domain. So the monitoring, evaluation, and learning of Nexus or transdisciplinary approaches. There are organizations that have been working on this for decades, like the Global Environmental Facility, and they have developed excellent models to learn from. With the Belmont Forum, we convened a workshop at the National Science Foundation in the US and brought together groups from the UN, from environmental law, from conservation organizations, and others that work in similar domains, to not just look at the scientific outputs and the number of students trained within an activity, but also the development of science-informed policy and the stakeholder experience and the communication with stakeholders, because even though that word is very broad, they are the legacy. Once the research funding is finished, they are going to be the ones that actually implement the work and carry it forward. So understanding that relationship is important. Within the SUGI domain, we went a bit further to look at impacts, to understand if the projects had achieved the intended environmental, economic, and social impact. And this is new for scientists, for many scientists. And so anytime you change the reporting, it takes some years for them to adapt and learn how to respond to that. So I think at the beginning of these projects, they were very confused and said, I'm a scientist. What do I know about impact? What do I know about social impact? And by the end of the SUGI projects, they were much more understanding of how this work has ripple effects well beyond, the publishing of papers or the training of students and postdocs. So I think we will continue to improve in this assessment. There are a number of toolkits that are available to help people assess complex projects like this. And we will continue to try to advance the impact piece, particularly within Future Earth, we are looking at creating a dashboard to assess the impact of transforming to sustainable practices. So when we get that started and pick a transformation pathway to use as our frame, we will put that on the website and be happy to share that experience with others.
Thank you so much, Dr. Erica. Faten, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Erica. Just I want to refer to the Tunisian case, which is, like a very simple case. Like the assessment was based on some of the field activities. They had kind of survey among the farmers. Yeah, because first they noticed the issue that there is a lot of use of diesel, and then there is like the solar is available there. So they wanted to have this kind of linking the solar use, and we are very much promoting the solar use since 2009 for the solar plan, and also the agriculture activities. So they started with this very simple field analysis. So they sent the survey, they consulted with the farmer there. It was like door-to-door kind of assessment. And then, they come up with some of the analysis on the impact of the social and the economic there. So, and also they found that this, while linking solar to the agriculture activity, this will help to reduce the use of fossil fuel, which is very important, and also with all the grants they are given to farmers, they are also helping farmers, to implement this solar projects, and they're kind of creating this new economic dynamics there. So yeah, this is what I wanted to add to Erica's response.
Thank you so much, Pat. And this was very informative for me personally. I'm not an expert in this field, so I'm learning with each session we make for CCIC. I learn a lot, to be honest. I would like to move to Dr. Ala Khalil. He's with us now, and I was wondering if he has any question or anything to add.
Okay, thank you, Ala, and thank you, Dr. Anjali. Of course, thank you, Erica, and Faten for good presentation, and I hope all my colleagues increase his knowledge and information about sustainable use and management of water resources. And thanks again for all, and also for USMC for support us for weekly presentation and seminar. Thanks again, Ale, and thanks for all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ale. We have Faten with us today. You can ask any question in Arabic if you'd like to. Yes, this would be lovely. Anybody want to ask anything before we lose both Dr. Faten and Dr. Erica? I'm sure they have a lot to do and we don't want to keep them busy. Yeah, I'm hearing thank you in the chat box. So I think they found all their answers in your presentation. It was very lovely to have you over these past 2 weeks. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, thank you. So thank you so much, Dr. Erica. Dr. Anjali, do you have any final words?
Not really. Yeah, Erica, I hope you feel better. I really appreciate that you had some sore throat, but you have nevertheless you joined us, and hope you feel better. And Faten, thank you again for coming a second time and also giving us a special treat by speaking in Arabic, which I'm sure everybody enjoyed. So unless there is somebody who would like to ask a question, I think we will, we will end the call. I don't see any hands up. So. Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.